Well, the International Congress of the Movement Disorder Society will start in Sydney within 2 weeks. I still don't know if I shall attend this meeting, but anyway, I would like to talk about a pictorial link between Sydney and Paris that relates directly to the question of normal and pathological movement. My presentation consists of 3 parts. The first is entitled The Unknown Sleeper, or From a Lesson to Another. If I have the luck to be in Sydney, I will find the time for a visit to the Museum of Fine Arts, the Art Gallery of New South Wales. I know exactly in which part of the museum I shall rush. And better yet, I know that what I want to see is hidden between these 2 statues in this exhibition hall. Here is the painting that I can hardly wait to see for real. The class of anatomy at the School of Fine Art in Paris, carried out in 1888 by François Sallé, a very little-known French painter, who was a member of the Artist Society and as such exhibited in several salons. Here, the alert by Sallé. Once exposed, this painting was purchased by the Museum of Sydney. François Sallé's teacher was Évariste Luminet, specialized in historical painting, whose work, the most famous, which exists in several versions, is called The Sons of Clovis II. You see both of them drifting on a raft after their mother had decided to slice their tendons because they rebelled against their father when he left for a crusade. The most famous version was performed in 1880 and has been purchased a few years later by the Museum of Sydney itself. Going back to the anatomy lesson, this canvas is 2 meters high and 3 meters wide, painted in 1888, when the Eiffel Tower was this side. Here are some works by French painters or resident in France painters, made precisely this very year 1888. Here the Waitress by Manet, currently at the Courtauld Institute of London. Here An Afternoon at the Grand Jatte by Seurat, from the collections of the Museum of Chicago. A self-portrait of Van Gogh. A Bridge over a Pond with Water Lilies at Giverny by Monet. The Card Players by Cézanne. Van Gogh painting sunflowers by Gauguin. Other sunflowers by Matisse. It was an explosion of creativity. Remember that the last Impressionist exhibition took place 2 years earlier, in 1886. You understand that this painting by François Sallé is quite an academic work without any trace of the artistic revolution that was happening then. Yet, I shall try to convince you of its importance. Its structure is not very complex. On one side, the duo formed by the professor, the teacher, and his live model. The teacher refers to the wrist of the model placed in a position consistent with the inert model one, that is, the statue, which will be discussed. On the other end, the audience, the students of fine arts. 3 of them are sitting on the foreground. The statue dominates the teacher and the model. In the background, we find posters on the wall, a small wardrobe, a table on which are placed the bones, it's an anatomy lesson, and finally on the right, a sculptor's turntable that we call sellette, small saddle, in French. A word about the statue. We recognize Eugène Caudron's flayed warrior, currently on display at the Museum Gustave Moreau in Paris. The flaying reveals the muscles, movement effectors, while they are only suggested under the skin of the warrior performed by Agasias from Ephesus, almost 20 centuries earlier, and now in the collections of the Louvre. So who was the teacher of anatomy that I hope to be able to shoot in a few days more accurately than this light-weighted reproduction provided by Wikipedia? We have some clues, such as this caricature representing him in the company of Oscar. Oscar is the beloved skeleton you see here amidst the students. Now hold in your working memory this simple opposition between the two groups, the professor and his model on the right, the audience on the left. Time to make a switch between this anatomy lesson and this other one. A lot more well known, the Tuesday lesson of Charcot at la Salpétrière, arguably the most famous in the world neurological picture, performed by André Brouillet, also a very academic painter, a year before the painting by François Sallé. Here we come back to François Sallé's painting. In 1887, here is André Brouillet. In 1887, Eiffel Tower was that size. The lesson at the Salpétrière is more than 3.5 meters high and more than 5 meters wide. I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that these two paintings are built exactly upon the same opposition between the professor and his model on the one hand and the audience on the other. But let's go further in the comparison. Here on the left stands the audience. In the front row, a few are sitting. This character has a posture very similar to that of Gilles de la Tourette, which stands in front of Charcot in a very attentive position. Here, a student draws up. There, another student takes notes. It's one of the Berbès brothers, Henri, to whom we are grateful because, thanks to them, we can read the Tuesday lessons that they have faithfully transcribed. I will not quibble on the similarity of Hans' position here and there. As above, so below, we find the presence of reproductions hanging on the wall, a table with bones here, a small table on which are placed scientific instruments there. On the right, the sculptor's turntable corresponds to the stretcher, dramatizing the situation, ready to collect the patients just in case. Charles Ferré holds his head with his right hand as this student above. Very ordinary posture in these circumstances, I agree. Now, look at that student, very poorly visible on Sidney's painting reproduction. I pretend he is probably asleep. You tell me, who cares? Well, let's go back to our teacher. Please follow the arrow toward the character leaning against the wall in Brouillet's painting. We know his name is Mathias Duval. At the time this painting was done, he was both a professor of histology at the medicine faculty, member of the Medicine Academy, and a teacher of anatomy at the School of Fine Arts. Here is a detailed picture that I took myself. Believe me, Mathias Duval's eyes are closed. He sleeps, probably exhausted by his many tasks, or simply not interested in Charcot's talk on hysteria, or thinking about his next class at the School of Fine Arts. Now that we have progressed in the analogy of the two paintings, you understand that If Matthias Duval is dosing, there are chances that the homologous character does the same, and why I am so eager to check this detail by myself. The next two parts of my presentation, far more serious, are entitled Dystonia and Others Illogical Attitudes, and about imitation. Thank you for your attention.